in welcoming you all here tonight. I just begin with a letter from the Irish Times about 3 weeks ago, which recalled that Tony Benn died on the 30th anniversary of what was the start of the British miners' strike in 1984. That since then, wages in Britain have declined faster than at any time in over a century, and the gap between the top and bottom opened up exponentially. It is worth bearing in mind that just what was lost before he is subjected to the appalling condescension of the memorial writers. And the other thing to bear in mind was written, believe it or not, in the Sunday Telegraph, a notorious right-wing rag. But Matthew Dancona said, "The battles that Ben waged continue, raging in forms old and new, as furiously as ever, across the blasted heath of politics. No statesman could ask for a better epitaph." And that decision, made through rather than by the British people, the turn to neoliberalism, relates very closely to what's happened to us in the euro recently, where we look at the collapse of the middle class in Spain by a right-wing party with a massive majority governing without any coalition partner, which can bring in its laws entirely by decree and has managed to undermine every trade union right, destroy minimum wages, and effectively destroy the middle class, which were a bedrock as working taxpayers of what was modern Spanish consumer democracy. The last time that happened in Spain, it required a 3-year civil war and the support of declared outside fascist intervention. This time, it was done as part of the neoliberal program of the Troika. We look to Spain today and we find that even the Spanish charity, Catholic charity, Caritas, says this is now the most unequal society in the entire Western Europe and the European community, with a frightening increase in the number of millionaires. These are echoes of what we hear in Ireland, but applied even more savagely. There is a curiosity in Europe, where in Cyprus, when it was proposed that all bank accounts would take a hit in the famous bail-in negotiated in Brussels and possibly originated in Berlin, the Cypriot Parliament rebelled, an institution we in Ireland have been trained never to look for leadership or rebellion from in all the years since our state was set up. And eventually it was agreed that only the large depositors would be hit. And that turned out to be just 4% of those with deposits over 100,000. 2/3 of them were not Cypriot residents. Half of them were Russian. And they paid an average of 47%. The 20% collapse that was predicted for that economy, which was peculiarly distorted to finance and banking, has turned out this year to be 5.6%. Their unemployment is almost 10% less than Greece. And as their minister said, if we had taken the Troika solution, we would have been Greece again. This was a group which managed to survive even a more exposed economy than we had to banking collapses. But they were able to say no, a word that's completely lacking at our ministerial level. And to come back then to the role of Tony Benn in 1984 in the miners' strike, we should remember that the reason Margaret Thatcher was re-elected as the most unpopular Prime Minister in polling history in 1979-80 was that she managed to get into a row over some islands in the South Atlantic with another outright dictatorship of a more even extreme fascist nature. Fortunately, we lost one group of fascists. Unfortunately, Margaret Thatcher managed to bring in what fascism would have liked and retain Parliament, and we are still suffering the consequences. And to hear how the people of that country have managed, we are privileged to have a speaker who's an excellent person to express herself in English and is one of the members of the group of parties which has secured an extraordinary lead, even in something as remote from most rank and file power and access as parliamentary elections. but with their own view on what that purpose is. In other words, not merely election winning, but something else.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you for coming. I'm really very pleased to be here in Dublin. Thank you very much for your introduction. And as the chair has indicated, I've been invited here to talk because I am a member of the political party in Argentina, who is, and this party is one of the three parties that form it's called in Spanish Frente de Izquierda y Trabajadores, which is the left and workers front, and I will call the FIT. So everybody, otherwise it's going to be too long. So the FIT is this coalition of three parties of the Trotskyist tradition. And I've been invited to talk here because the FIT made an important breakthrough in the latest election in October last year. So I will tell a little bit about how this front was formed. And we can, I would like to do kind of both ways, not just me talking all the time. So I would like to later have time for questions, and I won't maybe refer too much about the crisis in 2001, who has affected the country very badly. It's related, but we can talk about a little bit later. So I'm going to refer more to the last few years. As I said, the FIT is made up of three parties of Trotskyist tradition: the PTS, of which I am a member, the PO, which is the Workers' Party, and a smaller group called Socialist Left. And the FIT was formed in 2011. And in a way we were forced to unite. Why? Because the government changed the electoral law and introduced primary elections. So you had to obtain 1.5% of the votes in order to be entitled to stand for the real elections. So we had to, to unite, because otherwise we couldn't really be able to, on our own, we couldn't reach that threshold. But so the situation forced us to kind of think about how we can present an alternative which talks about the needs of the working class, an alternative that talks about the matters that really are important for the working people. So at that time the FIT was formed with 11 points in a program, defending working conditions, salary, housing, and different issues that are really important for the people. And in those elections, the FIT obtained 2 provincial MP, one in Córdoba, which is in the center of the country, and one in Neuquén, which is in the south of the country. And these are 2 important provinces, because they're very important for the economy of the country. Córdoba is an industrial province with a lot of car manufacturing industry. Volkswagen has a big plant there, so does Fiat and Renault. It's a very, very kind of industrial province, and also it has a long tradition of struggles, because at the end of the 60s and the beginning of the 70s, so before the dictatorship, there were coordinating bodies set up by the car workers themselves. It was kind of almost a dual power situation. So it's a long tradition of struggle in this province. And in Neuquén, Neuquén is less industrialized in a way that Córdoba, but it has been at the center of the political scene of the last 10 years, because there is one occupied factory which was occupied after the crisis in 2001, and it was occupied by the workers and is under workers' control. Now the factory has been is nationalized and is under workers' control, and they still, working. So, and the main leader of that struggle for the occupation and for the nationalization of the factory, Raúl Godoy is his name, has been elected as an MP for that province. And in Córdoba, the woman who was elected as an MP, provincial MP, she is the leader of the main teachers union, and she had led a very important struggle of the teachers in that province. So as we see, the two MPs obtained in the 2011 elections are directly linked with with the working class, with strikes, with teachers, with real people. So and also, but they didn't use in the sense, they didn't use the seats in the parliament just to develop a parliamentary strategy. They used the seats in the parliament in order to spread the struggle, to solidarize with other workers on struggle, to fight against the trade union bureaucracy, which is very important in Argentina. In Argentina, we called the trade union bureaucracy because the trade union leaders at the national level are very, very much compromised with the bosses. They sometimes, in some places, they are part of the managers, and there are very, very many cases of leaders being involved in case of corruption. So for that reason, it's very important for any kind of left organization to really talk and address the problem of the trade unions in the country. And also they use the seat to fight, to organize workers against, job redundancies, for better salaries, for better working conditions, and also to spread the example of the Sanon factory, because the Sanon factory what is the factory telling us? It's telling that workers have a solution to the crisis. We have an alternative. We can present our alternative. And as the workers can control a factory, the workers can also manage a country. Workers can also manage the country. So this is the message that we have. When we're facing the crisis, workers have a solution, have an alternative. That doesn't mean that because of a crisis we had to pay for it. And that message was also used in an international tour. Raúl Godoy, the leader of the Sanon factory, he came to Europe last year, and he went to France and spoke with workers in occupied factories. He went to Greece and he spoke with workers in Greece. That it's a similar situation, the crisis in Greece and in Argentina. So so in 2011, when we managed to obtain two MPs, the government of Cristina Kirchner, she was the president, she was re-elected at that point in the same election with 54% of the votes. So for 54.3% of votes. She was very popular at that time, with high level of popularity. On one hand, because Argentina was slow in being affected by the economic crisis of 2008. Why? Because the country had defaulted their own, foreign debt and was kind of isolated. So for that reason, the financial crisis didn't really affect very badly the country. And also because the country Argentina was doing a lot of trade with China. China was one of the main buyers of agro products, mainly soya. So there was a lot of money coming into the country, so that meant jobs, and the situation was better if we compared with the situation in 2001. So, and the other factor that helped the president, Cristina Kirchner, was what we call a sympathy vote. That was after the death of her husband and former President Néstor Kirchner. So many people voted as well, because of that. But by 2012, the situation has changed, and the level of inflation was very, very high, and the government introduced a tax on very low salaries, on people on low salaries, and this was very, very unpopular, because before there was a kind of threshold, so people who were earning below that amount of money were not taxed. So the government introduced this measure, was very, very unpopular, and there was a very high level of unemployment. And one of the trade unions, confederations, called a general strike. That was in November 2012. Was a very well observed that general strike. So it was a very strong message against the government. So within a year that the government had obtained 54% of the vote, the government was facing a massive revolt by the workers who had voted for her only a year earlier. So things have changed. And that strike cost the government the support of one of the main trade unions, one of the main allies, which is a trade union confederation. And also the strike of 2012 marks the beginning of the decline of the government of Cristina Kirchner. And because she succeeded her husband, who was elected, he was elected in 2003, many people call it the end of the Kirchner era, because they were in power for 10 years. So the kind of economic model was in crisis. Maybe I need to clarify what the Peronism is, because in Argentina there is no Social Democratic Party like in many countries in Europe. But the Peronist Party, which is a nationalist bourgeois party, in a way fulfills the same social role as the Social Democratic parties in Argentina. In which sense? In the sense that workers managed to get some reforms made in the past, and also because it's a party that workers vote for.
Here we call it Fidefol.
Okay, sorry, yes, sorry. I'm not very familiar with the politics in Ireland, yes. Yeah, the Fidefol, okay, thank you. Yes. So it's kind of, it fulfills that role. Okay, so in the 2 years since, as I said, in the latest election in October, the FIT, this electoral front of the left parties, obtained 3 national MPs, 8 provincial MPs, and 5 or 6 senators, and many councillors. And in total obtained more than 1 million and almost 300,000 votes. 1,250,000 or 80 votes, yes? So it's a big number. So why did the FIT manage to grow from 500 million in 2011 to more than twice in 2013? This is because the FIT, the candidates of the different parties in the FIT have been on the struggles, have been on the street. One example is the craft workers, which is in the outskirts of Buenos Aires. This is a factory with more than 2,500 workers. And today, 10th of April, there is a general strike in Argentina. There's 24-hour general strike, and the country stands still. And in this craft factory, all the workers in the factory are in strike today. But our party has done work in the trade union, the food industry, craft, the Carberry company. They also this political work in the PepsiCo, also work in Unilever, and this area is called the industrial belt in the outskirts of Buenos Aires city. So it's a very kind of working class area. So we did a lot of political work there, and we have won shop steward and factory and delegates, but rank and file delegates. So our work in the workplace and in the union is not at the national level, it's a rank and file level, shop stewards and rank and file delegates. So there is a direct link and contact, daily contact with the workers. So, because as I said, the trade union bureaucracy is really very kind of very bureaucratized in Argentina. So we did that work. Also, we did a lot of work with the immigrant workers. The huge, over the last year, huge immigrant amount of immigrants from Bolivia, and there was a lot of racism against that. So we did work with immigrants workers. We did a lot of work with teachers. This year, again, where there was a teachers strike, and it lasted more than 17 days, and they were asking for pay rise. And the PO, which is the other party in this electoral front, has a very high profile, mainly because it has concentrated its work after the crisis in 2001 among the piqueteros movement. The piqueteros movement are the unemployed people who, at the time of the crisis in 2001, they blocked the roads and built barricades on the streets and the main avenues, burning tires. That was to disrupt the economy of the country, because they said we don't have jobs, we're not at work, so we cannot strike because we are not in a factory. So the only way that we have to disrupt the economy is to kind of building barricades on the street. As I said, the FIT obtained, more than 1 million votes, and at national level is only 5% of the vote, which is not much really. You think 5% of the votes, but in those provinces where we have political work, we managed to get 20% of the vote, 15% of the vote, 11%. So there's a really clear relationship between the political work of the candidates. Now, workers, for example, in the Jujuy province, which is in the north of the country, the candidate on the FIT work is a man who worked as a refuse collector, and he's the first one in the list. In another places, the person who is first on the list is a teacher, in the other one is a nurse. So this kind of really appeals to people. But there's something new that happened in the latest election in October 2013. Because in the 2011 elections, there was a kind of contradiction. In which sense? The workers will vote for the left on the trade union elections, so for delegates, shop stewards. But politically, if you like, for the representation in the parliament, they will vote Peronists. So that was contradiction. They would say, okay, I vote for you in the factory because you defend, my job. If we've been sacked, you are there. It's one worker has suffered an accident, you are there with us, and you know our problems. But they will vote Peronist on the national election. And they knew something that happened in the latest election in October was that gap was really narrowed. What happened is, so some workers voted for us in the trade union election, but they voted for us also in the general elections. So, and we know that because some of them, they canvassed it with us. They went to distribute leaflets, and they also called their family, their relatives, their friends to vote for us. And we estimate that in some factories where we have political work, the percentage of workers who voted for the FIT was between 20 and 40%. So this is a clear distinction. And in the latest election, in October, the government obtained 32%. So from 55% in 2011 to 32% the government, in the latest elections. So, as I said, we did a lot of work among in our workplaces and about wages, labor conditions, against casual work among young workers, because a lot of casual work. And also, we did a lot of work in democratic issues. For example, there was one young activist who was a member of the PO. He was part of the campaign of the 3,000 railway workers who were fighting to be. There were 3,000 railway workers who were on short-term contracts. So they were fighting to be on permanent contract. But the trade union at the national level didn't support their struggle. But the local trade union, the shop stewards from different left parties supported them. There was a demonstration, and the national trade union, the national leadership, sent thugs, and as a result of that, one activist was killed because he was, one of the members of the thug sent by the trade union national leadership was armed, and he died. And there was a huge campaign organized by the left asking justice for Mariano, which is the name of this young activist. He was only 20 years and he was killed. And as a result of this campaign, we managed to have the national leader of the union to be sent to prison. He used to live in a house which is, £1 million or €1,000,000 house, which is a lot in Argentina.
A mansion.
A mansion. He was in a mansion. He wasn't in a house. He was not in a house. He was in a mansion, as I mentioned as well. And that is a lot of money. So he was living in a house like that, and now he's in prison. Because he has been charged with the murder of this young activist. And all of this was possible because of the pressure of people on the street. Also, there is a campaign for women's rights, in particular for the legalization of abortion, which is illegal in Argentina. So we demand for legalization of abortion, and then in the public health, hospital and free. And during the campaign, we used a lot of adverts on TV. What happened is, one of the benefit of this change in the electoral law allows for any party who stands for elections to use free, I can't remember how many minutes, of free broadcasting. So we have free space to use in TV. And we did a very good use of that free space. And I got some on my computer. We couldn't get a projector, but I had some in my computer. That 30-second slots. But in each slot, we address one problem. For example, in one slot, the issue is trade union bureaucracy. In the other one is women's rights. In the other one is casual work. In the other one is inflation. In each slot, we have this, we use that slot to explain in 30 seconds, so you have to be quick and simple. We explain one of the points of the programs. And we use that space on TV and radio, and also on the street. We went, for example, with a projector in the main railway station, the main tubes, the underground station, the big and the rush hour, everybody is there, and we used, we have projected this TV advert on the street. So when workers were coming back from work, they were waiting for the bus, they had seen this advert. So, and I think that was very an important factor that helped to obtain so many votes. And what I would like to say is that the FIT is not a party, it's a political front, so there are different organizations, and we do have some differences, and the thing is, we don't hide our difference, and we discuss them publicly in our papers, and it's different. We have mainly our political practice is different, because we stand for the same program, and we have differences, but we discuss them in our, publicly. We're inviting a TV program, on our papers. So this is something to bear in mind. And also, something that I would like to mention is that we didn't dilute our program in order to obtain votes. We are standing for a working class program, for working class issues in order in the campaign. And I think this is maybe if you think other alliance in Europe, for example, Syriza or maybe Izquierda Unida, Syriza in Greece or Izquierda Unida in Spain or Frente de Izquierda in France, they did quite well in the elections, but they don't set themselves the task of building a revolutionary party. They don't say we are revolutionary. We didn't hide the fact that we are revolutionaries. We didn't hide the fact that we want a workers' government, and we say all way long that we want to use the parliament or the seat to give a voice to the workers. If the parliament is a place where we can talk about the working class issues. We also use the parliament to not the parliament, but the fact that someone is an MP to go and give support to and strike. The MPs and the provincial MP, the national MP, they go to the strike. They are in the picket. Today, all the MPs were in different pickets in the country supporting the struggle, supporting the strike. As I said, it's a 24-hour strike today, and the MPs, were on the street, on the picket line, supporting the strike. So this is our strategy. That's our vision. So and also something new in Argentina is a generational shift, because, as I said, the old generation used to vote for Peronists, and the young workers are kind of disenchanted with the Peronist party, and they're voting, they're looking for an alternative. I know in Europe the situation is, is different, and maybe the youth is kind of disenchanted by the ruling parties, but they don't see an alternative on the left. So, and this, is at the moment it's different in Argentina. In 2001 was terrible, the situation. Was not really an alternative for the left. But the thing is, we managed to unite behind a revolutionary program. And as I said, we don't see the parliament as an end in itself, but as a means to spread the struggle, to support the struggle, to fight against the trade union bureaucracy. And one of the slogans of our program was for an MP to earn the same salary as a teacher. We said an MP should earn the same as a teacher, because they have very good salaries. And our MPs, what they did is, as soon as they took office, they only take home the same amount of money as a teacher, and the remaining money is used to support funds, strikes, or to support struggles, to support working class struggle. Because in a way, you have to do what you preach. You can't say, no, I'm for the working class, and live in a, like a queen. So I think this is also important, because they see this kind of, we do what we say, and this is an important example as well. And another thing is, within the candidates of the FIT, they rotate for example, because the seat is for the FIT, but you have 3 parties. So, they rotate the seat. For example, 1 year is the first one on the list, the next year the second one on the list. So they rotate the first 2 candidates on the list.
You can do that in your parliament.
Yeah, we can do it here. You can, no? You have to call by elect. Yes, that's we can do. Yes, you can do 2 years, and after you rotate, and then the person takes over. Yes, this is something that we can do it. You can do it.
You own the seat, not the candidate.
That's right. It's for the it's for the party. Here it's different. It's a person. Yes, it's a person. So yes, it's different. So, but I know it hasn't always been like this for the left in Argentina, and it has been years since the left had obtained such an important result. But we don't have to see the election as election result in itself, but the election results are an expression of a change or shift in the consciousness of workers. So the election is a result of workers being kind of fed up, if you like, with the situation. At the moment, the inflation in Argentina is 30% per year. So it's very, very high. So your salary is devalued, every month.
So if the union doesn't do something, people lose money.
That's right, you lose the money. And now the strike today was because there's a cap on the negotiations. Yeah, when you every year in March, there's kind of the collective bargaining, and the government introduced a cap. So the maximum that we're going to increase the salaries by 25%. But last year they were already behind the inflation, the salaries, in March last year we negotiated last time. And now with the 30% inflation, the salaries are very, very well below the inflation. And the government doesn't want to give workers, or doesn't want to agree on the negotiations more than 25%. But this is, 25% is below really, below the inflation. So people are losing money. The salary are very, very well behind. And that was the reason of the strike today. And 3 unions called for a strike because they want to be in a better position to negotiate with the government. There are 5 trade union confederations in Argentina. It's very complicated. Some of them are called official, some of them are in the same union. You have 2, the official and the non-official. So you have the same union, the sector who is with the government and the sector who is against the government, with the CGT. There's another union again. You have those who support the government and those who do not support the government. So there are 5 general confederations. 3 are supporting today's strike, and the other 2, because they are pro-government, they are not going on a strike. But the country today was paralyzed, was completely paralyzed, where no buses, no trains, no planes, no underground, was completely paralyzed. It was standstill. The country was at standstill because of the strike. Of course, the trade union leaders, they want the strike to be in a better position when they negotiate. So, look, if you don't give me when I'm asking you, I'm going to paralyze the country. So we go on strike, we support the strike, but we said this is not the end, and we need to demand more. We need an active general strike. The national leaders, they want the strike just to be in a better position when they negotiate the salaries. We don't want. We really want. We want more than that. We want. So we have our set of slogans. So this is also something. It's a very active participation, if you like, of the FIT in today's general strike. So just to finish, I would like to stress that the experience in Argentina is important. I think not only for Argentina in itself, but it's important internationally, because it shows that we, workers, we can build an alternative. We have an alternative plan to face, facing the crisis. And as I said, we are seeing some electoral alliance who are doing quite well in Europe, but they're not prepared to say, oh, we need a socialist alternative. We are against capitalism. We need a socialist alternative, because the FIT is united behind an anti-capitalist, socialist program, and anti-imperialist program as well. So these are the lessons, that you don't have to dilute your program in order. You have to be bold, because if you're not bold, maybe you lose support. That the only, this is, you know, there's no formula, there's no recipe. How can you be, you know, because it depends also the objective conditions in each country. In Argentina, the situation was terrible. It was almost 50% of unemployment, and there was no
50?
48, yes, of unemployment in the 2001, and the left was extremely weak after 10 years of neoliberal policies. Of 48.
2001.
In 2001. That's right. That's right. And
defaulted.
yeah, when they defaulted, and what happened is at that time, the level of employment was very high. Was after 10 years or more than 10 years of neoliberal policies. So when you were telling today what Margaret Thatcher did to this country was done by Menem in the 90s.
Not this country.
Sorry.
Part of this country, right?
Sorry.
His part.
I know. Sorry. Because you mentioned Margaret Thatcher and the miners. So what Margaret Thatcher did, you know, in England, is what.
And Reagan, they created
They
neoliberalism.
created neoliberalism.
We imitate these people.
Yes, it created neoliberal policies. So what they did, you know, for example, in England, you know, Menem did it in the 90s. He privatized all the railway, the hospital, everything, and the country was completely, you know, in chaos. And also was a lot of demoralization in the working class, and the working class was very, very demoralized but very conservative, because with that level of unemployment, you know,
People are frightened.
That's right.
Yeah.
You have to think it twice before going on strike, because
You mightn't get back.
that's right. So, and if you don't see an alternative, you know, the workers, you know, they don't go and fight for that. So by this occasion, we managed to, you know, to get a bold alternative, and so we don't know what's going to happen.
When did that change?
Sorry?
When did it change from being demoralised to...
What happened was after the crisis in 2001, you couldn't get it any worse. So everything was kind of improvement, and because the currency was devalued, the peso was cheap. So it was very cheap to buy if you had dollars. So it was a big export of agro products, mainly soya.
Massive devaluation.
Yes, massive devaluation. So, and the products, agro business, soya were very, very cheap. So there were a lot of money coming into the country, buying things, you know. China was one of the main buyers.